It's your host, Amani Smith, and we're here with
Liam Beggerstein.
Manish Mystery.
Evan Christenberry.
Welcome back to Dog Talk. Liam, I think you have something to say about affirmative action.
So actually we're going to start with media representation, and this is also like something that definitely ties into affirmative action. So basically I just pulled this report in 2022 called the Hollywood Diversity Report. Just to summarize real quick, it was a report written by Dr. Anna Christina Ramon, Michael Tran, and Dr. Darnell Hunt, and funded by multiple streaming companies, including Netflix, as well as the University of California, LA. So white actors led films nearly 80% of the time, up from 72% last year, but down from 90% in 2011. 60% of the leads were male, up from 55% the year prior, and down from 75% in 2011. White male leads were more likely to have a higher budget on both streaming and theatrical films. The white overall share of roles was 60%. Roughly 80% of directors were white for both theatrical and film. Overall, the films that were least diverse were also less likely to have a high return. The films that were least diverse actually had like a lower bottom line, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's about the person with the best talent. It's about the person who deserves the role, not necessarily about their race or ethnic origin. So
Right.
I just want to know what you would say to that kind of argument.
So do we think that films should have a diverse cast, even if that's at the sacrifice of acting ability of these individual actors? Or should films just go entirely based off of merit? And is there a world where we can have both, or what is that?
Like, you have to look at who is getting these opportunities. You know, like, our generation throws around Nepo baby so casually, but it's like, it's a cliche for a reason, and it's a real thing. It's like, these people may be the best of the best, but it's because, you know, mom and dad were actors, and, you know, they have acting lessons from 4 to 5 years old and on. You know, if you have kids and you're in a very lucrative industry, it just makes sense that you would want them to be a part of that. You know, like, that's, no one is really putting that down. You know, that's natural and good, I feel like.
You're saying like people who already are in the industry have more leverage.
Right, yeah, I mean, if like the vast majority are you know, white actors, especially white men, then it's like, it would follow that these cases of nepotism would continue. You know, the diversity since, I think it said 2011, has increased.
Right.
Do you guys think that that's more like reactive kind of to the current culture, or do you think it's like truly a like clean kind of progressive movement forward?
I think the end goal is that the movie industry is a business. Obviously, like, the intentions could be good. Like, they want to include a more like diverse cast for diversity purposes, but like others could be more like, oh, we just want to do it because we want to make more money. So it honestly depends on the intentions. If you have a more diverse cast, it could go like, you know, it could be like a really successful movie, but if it's not, then like you don't know what the issue is in that sense.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point that you bring up. Actually, I think, is it critical race theory that postulates that change only happens at the benefit of the ruling?
Yeah, I think
like the
interest convergence.
Yeah, interest convergence.
Yeah.
Critical race theory postulates that like interest convergence, and part of that could be what you're saying about like people need, at the end of the day, it's business. So like if people are interested in seeing a diverse cast, then that's what we'll get, and if they're not, then they won't, right?
That's a great connection.
Yeah.
Well, a more diverse cast is going to bring in a more diverse audience. It's going to bring more, like, it's going to bring higher numbers to the box office. Then it's, you know, it aligns with their interest temporarily, but it's just kind of like, they're just kind of going with the flow and kind of creating the flow at the same time.
Let's say like person A, his father was like in the movie industry, right? Person B, he's worked his entire life, you know, like no breaks or anything, and he's more qualified than the other person, but because of that nepotism, you might not be able to see like that quality of acting, if that makes sense.
If the problem is lack of opportunities, and the problem is that change only occurs to the benefit of this like dominating class, then how do we solve that? Essentially, like, we have to find a way to like equalize opportunity, right? And maybe a way of doing that is some form of like affirmative action, right?
And I have a little summary from an article by Kihana Muriah Ross. I'll just read it really quick for you guys. So the article is Anti-Blackness in Education and the Possibilities of Redress. So she examines the deep-rooted racial inequalities within the U.S. education system, arguing that anti-Blackness continues to harm Black students through discriminatory policies and practices. She proposes educational reparations, transforming curricula, disciplinary actions, and school environments as a necessary solution to address these systemic injustices and create a more equitable and inclusive educational experience for Black students. It's directly tied to what we're talking about, and I don't think you can really talk about meritocracy or affirmative action without talking about the educational institutions of the U.S. And I think people, it's like one of those buzzwords, just like critical race theory, that's just like thrown in people's faces now. I think people tend to forget that like affirmative action is not a new thing at all. There already is affirmative action happening for so many different groups, specifically now, especially for men, because if it was just based off of like test scores, most institutions it would be like 70-30 women to men. And part of that is just the maturity rate of women to men. To take the neuroscience approach, like their brains mature faster. So a 17-year-old woman applying for college and a 17-year-old man is essentially a 17-year-old woman applying against a 15-year-old man. It's not to say that it's just like universal general, like every single woman is smarter, every single man is dumber or something, but I just think that it's disingenuous to have this kind of conversation without acknowledging that this is happening all the time, and for all like different classes than I think most people think it is for.
I hear this all the time where people are saying equal opportunity doesn't mean equal outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So the expectation is that everyone's getting equal opportunity. Well, if that were the case, then if we were to say that we are a true meritocracy and everyone's getting equal opportunity, then you would expect equal representation of every group that is representative of the population. So every university should be, theoretically speaking, 55% white and like 12% African American, and so on and so forth. But that's not the case. So if you're going to say that there are no biological differences that make any minority or any individual less intelligent or less capable,
Mm-hmm.
but the meritocracy is not showing that there's a representative population in these universities, then the only true conclusion is that it's not a true meritocracy. And perhaps affirmative action can it's kind of acts like a check, right? So it's ensuring that these universities are at least closer to true meritocracies.
Affirmative action can be used to kind of put minority groups on the same level, at the same playing field.
If you're having to work twice as hard for the same result that somebody else that perhaps has more resources for, then is your results being less than theirs indicative of your lack of capability, or is it indicative of your lack of resources? So yeah, I think affirmative action is like the necessary scaffolding to ensure that a meritocracy remains a meritocracy. It's like it ensures that the advantaged are not so much advantaged over the disadvantaged that their results are on paper better if they're not any more capable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's it for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Dog Talk, and we'll catch you next week.